It's Monday, December 17th, and I'm your host, Paula Hersey. On today's show, we welcome the town manager back to the studio, learn more about the WS development proposal for the Cape Town Plaza, and have resources to help you cope with caregiver stress. Let's start with some news you can use. The Community by Design project is a joint initiative with the Cape Cod Commission and the town of Barnstable to develop compact model housing designs that are appropriate for the distinct characteristics of the East Main Street neighborhood, while also serving the housing needs of the community. Take the survey to share your thoughts on creating housing solutions the community needs and supports. You can find the visual design survey at www.capecodcommission.org. Putting the town in the best possible light, from the airport rotary to the town green and out to our villages. Town manager Mark Ells believes customer service is the key. It's the season for shininess and bright lights. With me today, town manager Mark Ells.
Good morning.
Good morning. How are you?
I'm well, thanks. How are you?
I'm excellent. Have you got your list into Santa Claus yet?
Oh, yes. Oh, we have to start early. You know, and it goes, maybe it goes by age in my family. I mean, there's 8 of us, so I end up way down the bottom. So, but that's okay. That's where I should be.
That's where you should be.
Santa,
right?
he and I have an agreement, so we're all set.
Excellent.
We're all set.
So we're going to talk a little bit today about really presenting the town of Barnstable and specifically the village of Hyannis in the best light. So give us a little update on how we're accomplishing that.
Well, that's a really good question. You know, I truly believe that we are many things, but certainly a service agency in a sense. It's all about customer service. We're in the service business. So how people see you and how you present yourself is critical to how well you're able to provide service. It's a fundamental component of that. It just isn't person to person. It's the way that they present themselves. It's the facility they're in. It's our town as a whole, whether it's our main streets, our fields at the high school, our comfort stations, the airport rotary. All of it matters. Right. And I say over and over and over again with our residents and our employees, and I know they know this, but you know, Barnstable's a unique place, and people come here from all over the place to spend time here. And we have to always be conscious of that. And, you know, because they could choose somewhere else.
Right.
And we don't want that. So, going forward to your question, whether it was the airport rotary, which I think you saw improvements out there, that's actually state highway. But the town finally got to the point where we said enough's enough. This isn't just
really
any
crazy.
other intersection anywhere in Massachusetts. This is the center of Cape Cod. This is the most heavily traveled corridor for vehicles on Cape Cod, and it looks horrible. So we went out and cleared it. So the state called us up and said, "Who did that?" And I had him directed to me, and I said, "We did." And so they were forgiving of us and ultimately thanked us. And so then we had entered into agreement with them. And as we did this, it was so, it just confirmed what I knew, which was, I had businesses calling me saying, "How did that happen? We've been waiting for that for years, and can I help?" You can't have a better scenario than that. So we've entered into an agreement with the state to continue to maintain it. I think late fall you saw us do it again. And we're still in discussions with businesses. So I hope in the future we're able to have them come in and decorate seasonally, appropriately,
Right.
tastefully. And whether it's Christmas, whether it's 4th of July, I see really 4 opportunities there to really, you know, kind of seasonally make a statement, certainly leading into the car show, and then I'd love to see us do more, and I know Open Streets and the Civic and the Chamber and the Bid all have been working on 4 events a year, but the harvest, the fall event is something that is beautiful here in the fall. So let's start thinking that way. Now, you jump down to Main Street. I know there was something in the newspaper this week, and I go to the strolls, and my family goes, and when you looked at Main Street Hyannis, it just didn't, it just wasn't what it could have been. Coming back to my first statement, how people perceive us, and I want Main Street Hyannis, whether it's the car show, which it already is, that's a job well done. Our 4th of July parade and then subsequent events leading right up to the fireworks, a fall event, and then Christmas and Christmas stroll. And I want people to put that on their checklist of things when they're visiting or whether they're living here, to make sure they get to that, because it's one of those things that speaks to what we are and who we are. So I've started to float this idea, and we're working again with the bid and the chamber and the civic association on all of these issues. And again, the businesses are starting to call me saying, okay, how can we help? What's our part? So if you've driven down some of our villages, we've gotten a lot of compliments on. And just know, the public should know that most of these efforts aren't the town doing them, as a lead. Certainly they ask for our support where needed. We're going to play an even more aggressive role and make sure that it is done in a way that kind of holds with the theme that I've just shared with you. So I'm excited about that. There seems to be a lot of support moving forward for that. We've got great partners out there to work with us on it. So I expect next season, the whole season, whether it's leading into the spring, the summer, the fall, and then Christmas, it's going to be great. And I hope that everybody takes the time to come on down and visit it.
It's fantastic. There's lots of streetscapes going on now, too, in all of our villages, so that plan works together.
Absolutely, absolutely. Yeah. And it's probably more complicated in the commercial center to try to coordinate it than it might be in a village. Because of scale and because of the number of events. But I mean, and it's not to say that all of them aren't doing a wonderful job, but I mean, Osterville seems to, consistently come in with these themed events, whether it's, the 4th of July or the Christmas, well organized, planned, implemented, and our residents say, that was nice. So I want to make sure that we're helpful in each of our villages to get to that. And certainly in Hyannis, that's kind of a central focus point for the region. And I want to make sure that that's done well, same level of, same presentation, that same level. So
our future is so shiny and bright.
That's right, you started with that.
Excellent.
It's the season, right?
It is the season. Thanks for joining us, Mark.
Thanks for having me.
The Cape Town Plaza lease proposal from WS Development was chosen by the Barnstable Municipal Airport Commission at their December 11th meeting. Katie Service, Airport Manager, leads us through the criteria for the bid process. What's old is new again. Since 1968, the Cape Town Plaza has been around here, leased by the Barnstable Municipal Airport Commission. With me today, Katie Service. Katie, it's going to be new again.
It is, and we're really excited about that opportunity. So like you said, we've had a ground lease for that property that the airport manages. That back in the 40s, the property was given to the airport by the military. It was given to the town as long as it stayed within airport management. So yes, since 1968, we've had a plaza there. The existing lease expires in 2024. We all know that the retail market has changed dramatically. So the town, the airport, town council, we all wanted to see what opportunity we had for that plaza and to really take a look at what developers could offer at that plaza and give it a new, fresh look.
Right, so there was a process that mostly all processes through municipalities go through, which is a request for proposal. You had two returned to you. Tell us just briefly how that process works.
Sure. So the request for proposal was done through the Chief Procurement Office in the town of Barnstable. the Chief Procurement Officer selected a committee of 7 people to evaluate the proposals that were received. So we received a proposal from W&S Development and Wilder Corporation, or Wilder O'Connor Partners. So what happened is basically the proposals that were received were sent off to the 7-member evaluation committee that was made up of airport members, it was airport staff, commission members, town members, folks from the Planning and Development Department, from legal, from the procurement department, as well as finance department. They were part of the evaluation team. And we all individually looked at the proposals. Then we met at the beginning of November and talked about what we liked, what we didn't like, what our thoughts were on each proposal. And then we invited both companies, both firms, to come down for formal interviews at the end of November. So really during that time, it gave us the opportunity to get to know what their thoughts were on the proposal, what their thoughts were for potential development of the site, and to ask questions that maybe weren't addressed in the proposals themselves. So it really gave us an idea and a flavor of what each company would offer. One of the things that I will say is both companies are very strong companies, and that made it somewhat difficult for the evaluation committee. I'm glad we had 2 proposals that came in, but it made it difficult for the evaluation committee because both have proven track records of development of parcels that they've done throughout Massachusetts or throughout the country, where they've renovated an existing shopping mall, or they started a new plaza from scratch that really looks at how retail is handled today in today's market. And so they both had very good approaches. They've both provided very good proposals on what could potentially happen at each site, where it's a mixed-use site. Both looked at identifying with a very much of a Cape Cod feel and a village feel. They both really looked at our community to say, what are the needs here for the community, but also, what are the needs for retail today? Retail is very different. Many people buy online. They do their shopping much differently than what we did in the 80s and the 90s. So their proposals looked at a mixed-use opportunity where they would have a mix of possibly restaurants and retail and small shop retail and local retail and open green space where you can have concerts on the green, or you could have some type of entertainment. So when mom, dad, and the kids come to, the shopping plaza, somebody can be shopping and somebody else can be with the kids, and it's more of an experience. And they both identified with that. One of the biggest things that really put WS Development a little bit higher as we were evaluating them was the first thing that they came out and said was they wanted to work with Love Live Local. They really wanted to work with local partnerships, local entrepreneurs that really spoke to that community feel of the Cape and really spoke to our desires and need to work with our own community on the Cape and continue that work. So that really struck a chord with all of us. That was something that was very well received by the entire committee. The other piece of it is W&S Development really highlighted the fact that once they establish themselves in a particular development at a particular property, they hold on to it. It's a very family atmosphere for them to hold on to their development, to maintain their relationships with the community, and for the most part, most of their properties, they have maintained their holdings, and they've remained in control. So we really liked that aspect of it. The other piece of it was that the airport had an appraisal done of the property to see what is the value of that property, both if it were to be sold, which the airport would never do. We'd like to keep hold of our properties so that we have diversification of our revenue, so it's not all aviation centric. And so we asked the appraiser to look at, one, the sale of the property, what would it cost in today's dollars, for its existing use, and what would it cost from an annual lease, ground lease perspective. So when that data came back, it really revealed that WS's pricing package was more in alignment with that appraisal. And so in the end, the evaluation committee decided that that was the best use of the highest and best use of the facility, and the highest proposal and best use of the proposal. So it was a really, it was a great experience to go through and to be part of that team.
Right, and they've had some pretty high-profile developments over the years as well. Derby Shops is one of them. So
Right.
that's and again that open space. We're all concerned that the shopping experience where the mall is struggling with some things. So making that area now vibrant again is really an important piece as well to the town.
Correct, and I think that is, part of the strategic plan for town councilors is that they want to see some economic growth and smart growth. I think what that parcel will do for that corridor is really give it a fresh look, really liven it up, and kind of put us on the map for a place to go. And many people go to Derby Shops, and many people go to Mansfield Crossing, where WNS Development has developed those parcels. And if you go to Mansfield Crossing, you see that they have, LL Bean, and they have an opportunity for people to use the pond that's nearby. So there's activity, there's exercise that's involved in that plaza. There's outdoor space, there's restaurants, there's shopping. So they kind of make their plazas. They're making it a very much of a living experience where they have woven in all sorts of entertainment as well as open, quiet space and walking space, and that's what they want to do here at the plaza.
It's a really changing landscape for retail, but the steps aren't complete yet. So there's things that are still, this has to go in front of town council now.
It does. So last night's step of the Airport Commission approving of the recommendation made by the Chief Procurement Office is really, that was the first step to make sure that they were in agreement with the recommendation that was made. So that was great that unanimously they voted that WNS Development was the developer to choose for that site. The next step is to sign an agreement. So the agreement is really, because we have an existing lease right now that goes to 2024, the agreement allows the developer the opportunity to maintain that existing lease, but to give that developer time to start their conversations with the town for planning and for permitting and what it is that they need to start designing and developing that site. So it gives them ample time to do that. And then signing of the lease. Now, according to Mass General Law, the Airport Commission can sign leases that are 20 years in length, but anything beyond that has to go to town council for approval. This lease happens to be 49 years, so we will be going to town council asking for their approval of the 49-year lease.
Right. So this is really an investment for the airport as well as for the town.
It is. One of the things that we really need to look at from an airport standpoint is making sure that, aviation fluctuates. There were times when this airport had a number of different airlines coming through. We had a number of different passengers coming through, and the airport was thriving. We had the opportunity as an enterprise fund to really build up our reserves and to really put some money away for development that we knew was going to happen in the future. The aviation market has really fluctuated. It's gone down. There's pilot shortage, there's mechanic shortage, so the airlines themselves are feeling the tug of having that lack of employment and that lack of workforce, and it's affected how many operations we have at the airport. So the airport really needs to look at their revenue stream and say, well, what is it that we have within our portfolio that is not tied necessarily to aviation, so that when we do have these downturns, the airport is still self-sustaining. We're not using any money or funds that are coming off of the tax roll or coming off of the general fund of the town. So having this property where is a non-aviation use is ideal because we maintain our management of the property, but we allow for a lease which is at fair market value, giving us the rental rate that we need to start building our reserves again.
That's fantastic.
It is, and it's great for the town because I think the town really wants to see some change, and they want to see a modification to that site because let's face it, through the years it has gotten a little bit old and drab, and it needs a facelift.
Right. It's a little tired.
It is
I
tired.
worked at Kmart in 1986.
Okay. And that's when it was thriving.
It kind of still looks the same.
Yeah.
So there's, and there's this whole push to try to use Chapter H to streamline some of the development out through 132 as well, through the commission. So, having those few years between the existing lease to the new lease will help this developer.
Right, and it'll give that opportunity. It gives a chance for both the town and the airport to just work through what type of development that's going to look at. You know, really, this step after the airport really signs the lease, it's up to the developer to work with the town to start looking at how they're going to develop that. Of course, the town will include us in the process, but it's really, it starts to become a town function in terms of development. As long as they're not putting a skyscraper up that's going to affect our airspace, you know, as long as they're looking at it from, you know, what they can do to make that a sound parcel for them, then the airport is fine with that.
Fantastic.
Yep.
Thanks so much.
Thank you.
We can all feel the stress of the holiday season, and caregivers may be particularly vulnerable. Help to manage this and other concerns for those who care for an older family member is just a phone call away.
Well, caregivers, it's a constant 24-hour position. And often people are not trained to be a caregiver. You weren't planning on being a caregiver when you got married or when you aged or even when you went into retirement as well. And the caregiving stresses that happen year-round are, you know, safety concerns, medications, diagnoses, trying to live your ordinary life, but also trying to care for and monitor and maintain somebody's lifestyle and safety at the same time. And sometimes you get lost in that process.
I think there are other stressors that most people are not aware of, that caregivers today are juggling multiple demands on their time. A large proportion of caregivers today who are, it's no surprise, primarily women, anywhere from 48 to 63%, depending on whose stats you go by, are women, most of whom are in the workforce to some degree, many of them full-time, also caring for their children, trying to balance the demands of a job, and just even older caregivers. I don't think people realize how many grandparents are caring for their grandchildren now. It's a huge epidemic for many reasons. Some of it is no surprise to anyone with the problem with opioid addiction. Many parents at very advanced age have stepped up and taken custodial care of their grandchildren. So you can imagine you're older, you have your own health issues, you maybe have a spouse who has a dementia diagnosis or some physical ailment, and you're caring for young children and all their needs. So between the parents, the grandparents, there's an enormous load on people today.
And that's right, and I'm glad you mentioned balance, because balance is so important.
Absolutely.
To find, but it's a struggle to find where you fall in that balance. How do you care for yourself, your person, which could be your spouse, could be a sibling, a child, or a grandchild. You're correct about that. And it's a changing world as well. So being a caregiver, the stressful part is going for the balance. And so kind of finding those resources, like at the Barnstable Senior Center, at the Barnstable Adult Day Program, where here we can guide you into some supports in our own community that will assist with respite, to help kind of give you a break and give your loved one the opportunity to flourish, even though they may be in a disease process.
Absolutely. I think something else that people don't realize today is that doctors are very often giving charge to the caregiver of taking care of medical needs that years ago you would have a professional do. You're receiving some training, hopefully. I think in Massachusetts it's required now that anyone that is being charged with assisting with medical needs of a loved one or a family person or another person is trained. But that's another added stressor. And you know, the confluence of all these things, as Stacy said, trying to find balance, trying to make time for yourself when you're trying to meet all these competing demands. We see it every day. We're concerned so many times for caregivers that are literally at the breaking point. But we can assist with that. If you are overwhelmed with medical needs, you know, we could tell you to speak to at Elder Services or VNA.
Elder Services, the VNA, Sometimes maybe even having a private therapist for that one-on-one that's all about you. Also, the resources in the community from a social day program like the one here at the Barnstable Day Senior Center, the Barnstable Day program, talking with the VNA, learning about companion programs, home health aides that can come into your home. Even a homemaker who might just take that added stress of vacuuming away and folding the laundry and give you, the caregiver, 30, 45 minutes of peace and of time for yourself, which is important.
That's a great point, and I think that people are often surprised to find out that in either private insurance or any type of medical insurance you have do not pay for a lot of support assistance. However, there are community-based support systems, and that's what Stacy and I do and other people here at the Senior Center to help you find the resources that are appropriate for your needs so that you're not going through this alone and just, buckling under the burden.
And you're right, when a lot of people feel like they are going through this caregiving process alone. And here at the Senior Center, we want to remind you, you're not alone. You have supports that are in your own community, in your own town. At the Barnstable Senior Center, we have support programs. We have our outreach department. We have Shine volunteers. We have a variety of things that kind of can guide you and walk you through the caregiving process. And the caregiving process is giving a lot of you, and sometimes we forget about ourselves during that process. And we're here to remind you, you need to take time for yourself. And being a caregiver is incredibly stressful. It's a job, like I said, we were not prepared for. Dawn and I run a great caregiver program. We're starting it again in January. It's a 6-week program for learning about caregiving and understanding the process and also validating the jobs that you do being a caregiver. And you think, well, I'm just with my person. No, you're the doctor, you're the nurse, you're the home health aide, you're the maid, you're the chief cook and bottle washer.
Chauffeur.
And the chauffeur as well, and the interpreter, and the ambassador to everybody else in your family. So we're here to remind you and to encourage you to contact us and say, you know what, I need more support. I am trying my best, and you're doing a wonderful job, but sometimes it's okay to say, hey, I need a little bit more.
Here's a look at the upcoming meetings for boards, commissions, and committees. Comments, suggestions, accolades, connect with us on Facebook and Instagram. Email us or send us an old-fashioned note by carrier pigeon. Channel 18 works. For you, I'm Paula Hersey, and thank you for watching Barnstable Today.